Here's a quick look at another magazine I have for sale here. This one is the July 1977 issue of Motocross Action, another one I actually have a couple of copies of. Here on the cover you have Radical Ron Turner and I believe Warren Reed, I believe, actually, on that Honda. Yep, looks like Warren Reed as well. Inside this issue you have a test of the 1977 Yamaha YZ400D. You also have a look at the Bent Aberg replica, which was a four-stroke motocrosser based off the the TT500, sorry, which was a really cool machine at the time. Really neat machine. Actually won a GP on it, the only four-stroke to win GP in the 70s, I think, and pretty much the only one to win a four-stroke to win motocross race on the GP level for like 20 years between the 60s and the 90s. Now, there's also coverage of the Spanish 250 GP, and some coverage of some Supercross races, and a look at the World Mini. Of course, in these old magazines, you have some classic ads like Coney Shocks. This one's for DG. DG was a powerhouse in the 70s, sponsoring guys like Bob Hannon and what have you. Jody's Box. Amazingly, Jody, even in 1977, was writing this article, and all these years later, he's still doing it. It's pretty amazing. JT Racing. JT wasn't quite the powerhouse they were in the 80s at this point, but they were a very popular aftermarket supplier of gear and all kinds of stuff like Phase 2 filters and other assorted stuff. You have the mail entries, still had that back then, of course. Al Baker, who went on to have XRs only and also famously helped bring the Mugen to America in the early 80s. Unfortunately, he's passed. I think he died in a maybe he died in an ultralight accident. It's hard to remember now, but I know he had passed, unfortunately. It's a cool prototype for what would become the 1979 CR125. Stuff for Motocross Action subscription. The tricks from the trade. All these are always cool to look at and see what was the hot stuff at the time. You have a look at some really cool minis. In the 70s, of course, at this point, you did not have a mini from Honda or Kawasaki. You had the RM80 and then the YZ80 were the two hot rods you could buy. Got some cool stuff like this porcupine head on that RM. And then there's an Italia Jet, I think, is the other one they're looking at here, which was, I never actually saw an Italia Jet in person. This is some race action with Marty Moats, the guy who won the first guy to win the Carlsbad 500 GP, racing overseas here in the Grand Prix races. You find a lot of Grand Prix race coverage in these old magazines because it was certainly more prestigious at this point than our U.S. races were. Supercross. I have some action from Atlanta here, back when they weren't racing in the Dome. I don't know if this is Fulton County Stadium. Oh, no, I guess they're racing at the Braves Stadium. Which is, I never attended. I've been to Atlanta many times, but this was before my time. I was a little kid when this was going on. We have some coverage of Houston and Daytona. Cool photo of Bob Hanna from Daytona. He was kicking everybody's butt at this point in Supercross. Chuck Sun, who would go on to win the 500 national title for Honda later, was racing Husqvarna's in 1977. And kind of interesting photo of him. Some coverage from the World Mini Grand Prix in this issue. A lot of stuff like that. Some more stuff on the Super Bowl of Motocross. Test of the 77 YZ400D. Cool little beast of a machine. I always wanted one of these old monos. They're really neat machines. My neighbor actually has a 79 right now. He's restoring. So really cool old bike. Great test here. A little coverage of Steve Wise, who's riding, I don't know what he's on. He might be on a Mako there. I'm not sure what kind of bike that is. No, it's a Honda, it looks like, maybe. I'm not sure. Got some LDADs here. Here's that Bent Aberg replica. Like I said, it was used a TT500 motor, shoot into a custom frame. They used basically a Husqvarna frame as the basis of this frame, and they ended up riding the GPs on it. Yamaha would eventually build a production version of this in very limited supply called the HL500. Really neat machine. Most of the ones you find now are replicas, but there's still a lot of guys still have them and race them. Some CDI upgrades for Makos, old Mako Braco. Some more ads here in the back. Here's an ad for the cool frame you could get for to turn your TT500 into a Aberg replica. Torsten Hallman Racing, which is the current Thor, sold it, and you could stick your TT500 motor in this thing and have kind of, you had to buy suspension, of course, too, to go with it. The hot setup was to take some aftermarket shocks and maybe some YZ forks and stick them on there. Got an ad here for a cool up pipe. You got to remember, at this point in 1977, the CR125 still used a down pipe. They were so far behind the competition, it was ridiculous. And this at least made it look halfway modern, in spite of the fact that it had half the suspension and an ancient non-reed valve motor. So they were really behind the times. And then here at the end, you have a Bell Ray ad. So if you're interested in this magazine, it is for sale here on eBay, and you can check it out. Happy bidding.